Way back in 1873, Mark Twain and his buddy Charles Dudley Warner wrote a novel, and they gave it a pretty bold subtitle, A Tale of Today. The book's actual title? The Gilded Age.
So, you gotta wonder, right? What exactly did they mean by the Gilded Age? And how in the world did this one book end up naming an entire period of American history? Well, to figure that out, we've got to start with the word itself.
The name literally comes from the act of gilding. You know, when you take something kind of cheap or plain and cover it with this super thin, shiny layer of gold. It's such a perfect metaphor, isn't it? A beautiful, glittering surface, but underneath, something way less valuable, maybe even rotten. And that idea, that's the key to this whole story.
Okay, so let's dive into part one, A Gilded Promise. This is where our story kicks off, with this gilded promise. It's this intoxicating dream of just, spectacular wealth that you didn't even have to work for. And it completely captivated a whole generation. So let's meet our first character, Squire Hawkins. Picture this guy. He's a postmaster, a storekeeper in this poor, rundown little village called Obedstown, Tennessee. I mean, his life is just stuck. He feels like he's decaying right along with the town. But here's the thing. Squire Hawkins has a secret, a huge dream.
And that dream is all tied up in this one number, 75,000 acres. That's a huge piece of undeveloped land in Tennessee that he's somehow gotten his hands on. Now, to everybody else, it's basically worthless. But to Hawkins? Oh man, it's a gold mine just waiting to happen.
He's always telling his wife, Nancy, there's oceans and oceans of money in that land, mark my words. See, he's got this vision that nobody else can see. He's imagining steamboats and railroads crisscrossing his property, turning this worthless land into a treasure trove of iron, copper, and coal. This isn't just about money for him, it's about making his kids into royalty, basically.
Okay, but check this out. While he's dreaming of all these future millions, this is what his life actually looks like. A rundown log cabin, and the yard, it's grassless and just filled with junk. And this right here is our first absolutely perfect example of what gilding is all about. You've got this magnificent golden dream just slathered right on top of a pretty grim, poor reality.
But this dream of his, it's not just some quiet little hope he keeps to himself. Oh no, it has a voice, a personality. And if you think of Squire Hawkins as the dreamer, well, our next character is the dream brought to life. Get ready for the great, the magnificent, the unforgettable, Colonel Beriah Sellers.
And Sellers just explodes onto the scene. He sends a letter that's just buzzing with this frantic, can't-say-no energy. Come, rush, hurry. This guy is pure optimism and has like a million schemes going at once. And just like that, he convinces the whole Hawkins family to pack up everything and move to Missouri to get in on his latest grand plan. So the Hawkins' son, Washington, he gets there first. And when he arrives at the Colonel's place, things look pretty good. It's this big brick mansion, way fancier than any of the other houses on the street. It's another one of those beautiful gilded surfaces, right?
But the second he steps inside, whoa, the gold paint just peels right off. The Colonel is going on and on about his enormous operations and London bankers and Atlantic oceans of cash. But the reality? It's a dreary old sofa, a couple of busted chairs, no carpet on the floor, no pictures on the walls. The place has been stripped bare.
And then comes the real kicker. Washington is absolutely freezing, right? So he gets closer to this big fancy stove to warm up, and he realizes there's no fire. There's nothing inside but a single sad little candle, with its tiny flame just barely glowing behind a glass door. This moment is it's the perfect satire of the whole book. Because when the stove door accidentally falls open, is the Colonel embarrassed? Not one bit. He's proud of it. He calls it a scientific marvel, and then he says this amazing line. What you want is the appearance of heat, not the heat itself. That's the idea. I mean, come on, appearance over substance. That was the Gilded Age in a nutshell.
Okay, so the book isn't just making fun of delusional guys like Colonel Sellers. It goes deeper. It's also this incredibly sharp critique of the whole era's obsession with progress. A kind of progress that was relentless, totally unregulated, and, as we're about to see, often deadly.
And you see this perfectly in this insane scene about a steamboat race on the Mississippi. So the crew of one boat, the Boreas, they get challenged to a race, and they are desperate to win. So what do? They start throwing anything and everything into the furnace to get more steam. Rosin, bacon, even turpentine. The two boats are neck and neck, smoke and sparks flying everywhere, engines just screaming. Until, well, the inevitable happens. A huge roar, a crash, and the other boat, the Amaranth, just explodes into a ball of fire.
And the aftermath is it's horrific. We're talking 22 bodies recovered, 39 people wounded, and 96 people just gone. Drowned or burned. There are survivors trapped in the burning wreck, screaming for help, but they're just consumed by the flames. It's an absolute nightmare, and it's all because of this reckless, stupid race.
So what happens next? What's the fallout? This might be the most cynical part of the whole book. They get a jury together, they talk it over, and they come back with what Twain calls the inevitable American verdict. After all that death, all that clear negligence, their final conclusion, nobody to blame. Just like that. It's the perfect cynical punchline for an age that cared way more about progress than it did about people or accountability. And that brings us all the way back to where we started, with that subtitle, A Tale of Today. Look, the book was definitely a mirror held up to America back in 1873. The real question is, when we look in that mirror now, does that reflection still look a little familiar? I mean, just think about the big ideas we've been talking about, right? This feverish obsession with speculation, whether it's land in Tennessee or whatever. The huge gap between how things look and how they really are. That super tempting promise of getting rich overnight without any real work. And then the tragic human cost when that ambition goes off the rails. Followed by that collective shrug and the nobody to blame verdict. So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. Think about our world right now. You know, with all the speculative bubbles, the get-rich-quick schemes flooding our feeds, the perfectly curated online lives that we all know hide a much messier reality. Is the Gilded Age really just a chapter in some old history book, or is it possible that it's still a tale of today?